All right. Thanks so much, everyone. It's good to be back. Today's topic is building confidence from within. My session today is going to be on building confidence, and the focus of the session is to provide language and offer techniques to help coaches develop the mind pillar in USA Volleyball's development model. And the mind pillar means training our minds to maximize performance. The mind pillar is one of 5 foundational pillars in the USA Volleyball development model. So what is confidence? I'm going to define it for you. I'll offer a couple of definitions, but before I do, I want to ask you to think of the most confident athletes or coaches that you've ever played with, or coached, or recruited, or seen. And I want to ask you to just take a moment and think about, what does a confident player look like on the court? What does a confident player speak like on the court, either to themselves or to their teammates? What does a confident player play like in practice and in games? Maybe you're imagining a hitter yelling at her setter to set her the ball again, wanting the ball. Or a passer pushing his teammates over in serve receive because he wants to take more of the court. Now I want you to turn that reflection inward and ask yourself, what does a confidence look like in a coach? Because like all these mental skills addressed in the mind pillar, confidence is applicable to coaches too. When are you most confident as a coach? When does your confidence start to wane? What skills or techniques are you most confident teaching? And why is that? What skills or techniques are you least confident teaching? And why is that? Confidence is one of the most important foundational mental skills in sports psychology, and it is one of the biggest predictors of performance outcomes. And it can also impact performance outcomes. So we're going to go ahead and dive into that today. I'm going to offer you a couple of definitions because confidence can be hard to define. So the first one is, confidence is one's ability to maintain self-belief despite setbacks or opponent intimidation. Confidence is an accumulation of one's unique accomplishments across many different tasks and situations, coupled with preparation for the upcoming event, which enables one to develop specific expectations of achievement. And confidence is the belief that you can successfully perform. All right, so oftentimes coaches and athletes especially tend to think of confidence as this binary thing. You either have it or you don't. Are you feeling confident today or are you not feeling confident today? And I think it can be really helpful to help athletes think about confidence less as you either have it or you don't, and more of a confidence continuum. So on the left-hand side, we have overconfidence. Overconfident athletes believe that they're better than their game statistics. They believe they have an inflated sense of their performance history. They also might tend to lack physical or mental preparation as a result, because they don't think they need to get the extra reps. Overconfident athletes also tend to respond to pressure situations by trying to overperform. Maybe they're hoarding the ball. In many cases, overconfident athletes have a history of being sort of either pampered or grandialized by their parents, guardians, past coaches. They have an inflated sense of ego that shows up in the performance. So that's on one end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum, we have underconfidence. And underconfident athletes tend to underestimate their skill level and potential. This is the type of athlete that maybe they don't think they played well, and then they look at the stat sheet, and then they're like, oh wow, I had that many digs, or I had that many kills. They almost don't even believe it. They're undervaluing themselves. They can be often overcome with self-doubt and have difficulty recovering from mistakes, either in practice or in competition. Underconfident athletes also tend to be underprepared mentally or physically. These athletes are highly sensitive to feedback and experience a self-fulfilling prophecy of failing in pressure situations, which is something I'm going to get into in our next slide. But I will say that most of the time, when we're trying to assess whether an athlete is overconfident or underconfident, I would say that most of the time, especially when we're working with younger athletes in club situations, club programs, and high school programs, what we're seeing most of the time is underconfidence. And where we want to be is somewhere in the middle. We want to be at that optimal confidence level. So what does optimal confidence look like? Well, athletes with optimal confidence levels are adequately prepared for pressure situations in both competition and practice, both mentally and physically. They have a realistic and attainable both individual and team goals. And optimal confident athletes also approach their competition with a clear game strategy. So confidence tends to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. But when an athlete lacks confidence, they don't perform well. And then they become more self-critical and they avoid risk-taking. There's increased negative emotions, ultimately resulting in lowering confidence. The opposite of that is an athlete does have high confidence, has a good performance, positive self-talk, ultimately resulting in more positive emotions or motivational and affirming emotions, and ultimately increased confidence with better performance and then higher confidence. So that's what I mean by the self-fulfilling prophecy. Confidence is very much alive. It is constantly fluctuating. And it follows that the strongest predictor of confidence is the athlete's previous performances. So if they're having previous success in the past, they're obviously probably going to have higher confidence. And if they have previous failures in the past, then they're going to have lower confidence, obviously. But there are ways to help build on these past experiences that can really help to increase an athlete's confidence. And one of the keys here that I really want coaches to take away, that I try to, whenever I teach confidence with my athletes, one of the key takeaways is that you have to teach athletes to commit to doing things that actively foster an optimistic mindset and increase their confidence. A lot of athletes don't feel like they don't have control over confidence because they feel like they're trying to not shank a ball, then they do, it feels out of their control, and then their confidence is affected. So it feels like their confidence is out of control. When in fact, there are things that they can do to actively control their confidence and increase their confidence, or get it back, or lower it if necessary. But we're really working towards that optimal confidence mindset. So I love this quote from one of my favorites, Dr. Colleen Hacker, from her recent book, Achieving Excellence, Mastery Mindset for Peak Performance in Sport and Life. Dr. Hacker says, confidence is a road that is always under construction. It is a task that is never done, a problem that is never solved, a challenge that never goes away. The need to normalize that fact is critical. That's what I really want to drive home here. With athletes, we really want to normalize the fact that we have to expect our confidence to fluctuate, because it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It is going to be impacted by factors that are out of their control, like how opponents show up to play, how teammates show up to play. So we need to normalize the fact that confidence is always under construction, and we need to commit to working on it. So confidence often fluctuates based on the situation, the game, or any specific circumstances. Confidence is unstable and it's dynamic. It's constantly moving. We really want to normalize this for our players. We also want to normalize that self-doubt is normal. They're always going to have some slumps and dips in confidence. And the goal is not to never have low confidence. The goal is to learn how to recover from low confidence levels and build increased confidence faster. So how do we do this? I'm going to spend the rest of this session talking about ways to help athletes build their confidence back and recover from low confidence, since that's the usually the biggest performance obstacle. So first thing I want to talk about is developing that self-awareness. When an athlete loses their confidence, they're usually thinking about their mistakes. So I want to start by, I'm going to share a couple questions and just want you to be thinking about answers for yourself or your athletes that you have. What causes you to lose confidence? So you can think about this from a player perspective. What causes your players to lose confidence? But I would also like to invite coaches to think about it from a coach's perspective, because the more that you can think about your own fluctuating confidence is going to help you be attuned to your players and recognize their needs. So coaches, what causes you to lose confidence as a coach? What does it look like on the volleyball court when confidence is low? We did a little bit of visioning this exercise earlier. Just think about your team right now, think about your players, and you can look out on the court and you can recognize when a player's confidence is struggling. What are you going to do about that? And this is a big question that we can help athletes start to, that we can use as both, let me say it differently. We can use this question as an intervention. What are you thinking about when you have low confidence? So oftentimes if an athlete, let's say they shank a ball and their confidence is low, most of the time they're thinking about the last pass, right? The last play. In volleyball, we have these it's stop, start, stop, start. We have these moments in between plays, and that's usually when the confidence starts to wane, the low confidence starts to creep in when we're thinking about the last play. And now I want to pivot and think about what causes you to regain your confidence or gain confidence. What causes your players to regain confidence? And then lastly, when are you the most confident? So thinking about it again from a player perspective, and then also thinking about it from a coach's perspective. And when we think about factors that influence people's confidence, personal factors include things like goals are going to influence people's confidence, optimism, their optimistic mindset, motivation, and also performance anxiety. All of those are personal factors that can influence player or coach confidence that we want to be aware of. And then we also want to be aware of situational factors. So situational factors that can influence a player's confidence. One is playing a preferred position on the court, right? If they're used to playing outside, they recently get moved to the right side, that's going to affect their confidence. We have to expect that. We have to normalize that. And we have to provide strategies to support them around that. Starting versus coming off the bench is going to impact their confidence, especially if they're used to starting and now they're playing on a new team and then they're coming off the bench. We see this a lot with players who are stars on their club team and then they go into college and now they're first year in college and they're coming off the bench. They've never sat on the bench before. This is going to affect their confidence. Also, recovering from an injury is a really big one. We have to expect that injuries are going to affect player confidence. And there's a lot of support that we can provide around athletes returning to play after an injury. There's also home court advantage versus playing away, right? If you are playing at home, you got the crowd behind you, you're naturally gonna have a little bit more confidence. And if you're playing away and the whole gym's cheering against you. Other things that situational factors that can influence athlete confidence are going to be teammates' behaviors, coaches' behaviors, even parent behaviors or fan behaviors. So keeping in mind that all of those things are really going to impact confidence. All right. So what do? We know what affects. We know what high confidence and low confidence looks like. We know what affects confidence, situational factors that impact confidence. So how do we help athletes self-regulate and create that self-regulation plan? So some questions to think about for yourself and also to help your athletes think about. What will you do if you are not feeling confident when the match starts? This happens all the time. We see it, it starts in hitting lines. Maybe you get a couple tight sets, or your timing's off, you're not connecting with your setter. All of a sudden, players are starting the match and they're not feeling confident, even though they had a great week of practice. What is your plan for that? That's what we want to start to think about, is having just like we have an air recovery plan in between points and timeouts, we also want to have a confidence recovery plan that also is very much connected to air. So how you recover from a mistake and reset in between points. This point resetting is so critical in volleyball. We're constantly talking about it with our athletes, and at every level, from high school, club, college, to elite athletes. This in volleyball, point resetting is critical. How are we going to recover from our errors and maintain control over confidence? Next one, how are you going to prepare to perform in front of a big crowd? When we're doing things like imagery, which we will do later on in this session, we have to expect our athletes to feel different in practice versus playing in front of a big crowd. And I also just want to say, it doesn't even need to be a big crowd. It could be a small crowd, and maybe it's a club team, it's a small crowd, but one of the people in the stands that day happens to be a college scout from the school that they really want to go to. All right, that is going to impact their confidence in some way. We have to mentally prepare for that. That's what's one of the biggest things that I see with the club athletes. All right, I love this quote from Arthur Ashe. An important key to self-confidence is preparation, right? So this is what we're trying to get into here, is helping athletes recognize that there are things that they can do that's going to actually influence their confidence. It's not completely out of their control. All right, so when we're trying to build confidence in athletes, what are the main sources of self-efficacy and confidence? I'm going to highlight 4 different strategies here, and then we'll talk about how you can actually use these with your athletes at every level. But this theory, according to Bandura, high levels of self-efficacy contribute to higher levels of performances or mastery experiences. So self-efficacy is the belief that you can perform a specific task. We're going to go ahead and start here with performance accomplishments or mastery experiences. And what I mean by performance accomplishments and mastery experiences is it refers to the experience of mastering a desired skill or task, reflecting on the mastery experience as a method of increasing confidence. So how can we use past performance accomplishments to help athletes increase their confidence? Well, one way is to have them watch highlight videos either before or during matches. Highlight videos, in this case, if we're using them during matches or right before matches, we're not talking about long videos. We're talking about very short 30-second clips, no more than a couple minutes of just watching them perform this, having success in the past. Maybe it's one of their signature plays that always increases their confidence, that they feel confident performing. We can also spend time reflecting on past successes and recreating them through imagery. So we're going to spend some time doing that at the end of our session today. But when we're actually playing, we don't have a lot of time to do that. So that's something that you're going to be doing like before you play. Another idea to help athletes reflect on and use their past performance accomplishments to help them increase confidence is by creating, is by creating a personal Hall of Fame, like scrapbook or journal or vision board. Especially with club athletes, this is great. You can bring, you can do a session with the team. It can, and have the athletes really thinking about all the things that they have done. Oftentimes they're so all of us are so future focused that we forget on what's already been accomplished. And sometimes just by writing it out, by drawing it out, it can really be helpful. All right. The next source of building confidence is vicarious experience. And then by that, I mean role modeling. So vicarious experience is the process of identifying a role model or expert in your field or sport and learning the process of observation and modeling. So one of the best ways to do this is if you have a club team or high school team, watching going to college games, watching the national team compete, watching players play at the next level. This role modeling is so important. Or maybe it's a 14s club team watching the 18s club team play at a tournament. We really want to be encouraging athletes to have these role models and have that modeling. And it doesn't need to only be in your sport. You can identify characteristics or traits from sources outside of volleyball. But the idea that we really want to encourage athletes to have some role modeling. All right, the third one is verbal persuasion. So verbal persuasion means like things that people tell you from others, such as like your teammates, your coaches, as well as even internal self-talk influences this. All of these things have the capacity to greatly influence confidence. All right. The verbal persuasion needs to be believable and credible. So it's not making, big promises or assumptions when that doesn't actually feel true. It really needs to be believable and credible to the athlete to be able to have the verbal persuasion be effective. But I see this a lot with athletes and this verbal persuasion concept of when you think about, and this happens a lot with let's think about a specific practice, like a volleyball practice. One thing that I like to think about is that athletes often will hang on the one negative thing that comes out of the coach's mouth. I'm sure you've had this experience before. You can tell an athlete 5 positive things in a practice, and oftentimes, especially if there's some maladaptive perfectionist thinking, they're just going to hang on that negative thing. That is natural. That is normal. We can normalize that, but we also want to recognize that tendency and help athletes shift their focus to the positive things that were said. And that goes for mistakes as well. So if they had 5 kills, hit 1 ball in the net, and they're focused on the 1 ball that they hit in the net, we want to help them to shift their perspective and focus on the positive things. One strategy that you can use with, again, every level, I do it with both my club and my college teams. It's really effective, especially right before tournaments. You can do it. If you're at a club tournament, you can do it in between games as a fun strategy. You can also do it as kind of like icebreaker, even at the beginning of practice, early on in the season or later in the season. But it's called strength bombardment strategies. And this is really going to tap into this verbal persuasion key factor. So what I would do with my team is to get them into groups and have the players make TikTok videos of their teammates. Or you can also write on sticky notes on a player's back. You can get it in a circle and have someone in the melting pot, although that can be uncomfortable for some folks. But what we want to do is have the team give positive, affirming, credible, and believable feedback to their teammates. So we're getting it from the coaches, but we're also getting it from their teammates. Oftentimes, when you start to get inside an athlete's head, they're worried that that their teammates don't think they're good enough to be there. Their teammates don't believe in them. So just hearing really specific things that their teammates say about them, why they believe in them, maybe reflecting on some memorable plays or moments that they've had throughout the year, and capturing those so that the athlete can actually take them home, take them away. It's not just a one-time thing. It's a tool that they can use when their confidence is low. Maybe they have a bad practice. Maybe it's the night before a tournament and they feel like they need a little confidence boost. They can go back and reflect on that. So, the athletes that I've done this with love making little videos, or it could be voice memos with their phones for their teammates and sending it to them so that the everyone actually has copies of these from their teammates. You can also do sticky notes, put sticky notes on their back, and have your teammates go around and write positive things to each athlete. And then the athlete will then take those sticky notes and put them in a journal or something like that. It can be really powerful. All right, and the last state is going to be emotional and physiological state. So this is the process of recognizing and managing one's optimal arousal state during competition. And so by that, what I mean is helping athletes identify what is your optimal arousal state? What is your optimal emotional state during competition? And then helping athletes create pre-performance routines or use imagery to achieve that state. Or also reframing or reinterpreting how your body is preparing for competition. So we've talked about this in a previous session, but I will just do a quick review. If we're thinking about athletes and how when they actually perform their best, oftentimes what I will do to prepare for imagery is ask the athlete to remember a game where they played their best, bring out an emotional wheel or a feelings wheel, help them identify the feelings that were present when they played their best. And almost every time we'll have athletes on the team that they'll say things like confidence, excitement, all of those things, but there will also often be things like nervousness or feeling scared, or those other emotions that athletes might generally think of as typically as bad. But when they can start to realize that right before they played their best, they actually felt really nervous and scared, in addition to confidence or excitement, that can actually be really helpful knowledge, because in the future, when they start to feel scared, it doesn't automatically start to impact their confidence. They can remember, oh yeah, the last time I felt this way, last time I played my best match ever, I also felt really nervous. So this is fine. And it doesn't necessarily tank their confidence right before a tournament or a game. So those are 4 different categories of strategies, and hopefully gave you a bunch of little ideas that you can do with your team. One more strategy is a mindfulness-based approach. So what is a mindfulness-based approach? It's awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So it's encouraging athletes to be completely focused on the present moment, not the last play, not the next play. Having athletes focus on awareness instead of control. So recognizing those things out of your control and letting those go, and just really focusing on where your mind is at. And it's a strategy that's implemented over and over and over again. All right. So it's kind of like, you notice if you're doing like some sort of guided imagery, or maybe it's just in a typical practice and a coach is explaining instructions and the athlete notices that their mind kind of wandered and then it comes back. It's teaching the athlete to recognize that they have to train their mind to constantly refocus on the present moment. This happens a lot in volleyball because we have those gaps. Those points where, when we talk about the point resetting, a big part of the point resetting is redirecting the focus. One of my favorite stories about athletes using a mindfulness-based approach is Michael Jordan. It's widely known that Michael Jordan, obviously one of the greatest NBA basketball players of all time, had a devoted mindfulness practice influenced by Phil Jackson and George Mumford. And one of my favorite quotes was from the from the documentary The Last Dance, in which Mark Vancil, the editor, describes Michael Jordan's mind. And the quote is, "Michael is a mystic. He was never anywhere else. His gift wasn't that he could jump high, run fast, shoot a basketball. His gift was that he was completely present." So I love that. It's just so captured what a mindfulness-based approach is. And that's really what we're talking about here, helping athletes point reset and stay focused. Here's just another quote. "It's all about where your mind's at," helping athletes be completely focused. So this is just what I'm really trying to do here is help you really sort of recognize that I've given you 4 different types of strategies for 4 different types of strategies to help athletes build confidence, and then also recognizing that a mindfulness-based approach, helping athletes assessing where their mind is at, what they are focusing on, and redirecting their focus to the present moment is also going to impact confidence, because oftentimes confidence is impacted by the last play. So if they make a mistake and their confidence starts to wane, the issue might not be confidence, the issue might be focus. But what I'm trying to do here is draw this connection between focus and confidence, because they're so interconnected when it comes to confidence. All right. So we're going to take a moment now and we're going to do an imagery. I'm going to guide you through an imagery session, and I would invite you to go ahead and follow along and participate in the imagery just as if your players would. This imagery, like we've said in the past, there's lots of different reasons to do imagery. Imagery has a lot of different effects. You can go back and watch the imagery session to learn more about imagery. But a brief review is imagery is the act of it's creating or recreating a play or situation or experience in your mind. And so how do we use imagery with our athletes? Imagery is intentional, and it needs to be consistently used in a systematic way in short bursts of time. So, like, for example, this imagery session that I'm about to guide you through will be about 5 minutes. It does not need to be very long. It can be quick, short bursts. There are many purposes to imagery. This session today is really going to be focused on boosting athlete confidence. And the way that we're going to boost athlete confidence is by imagining what I like to refer to as a signature strength. So if we're a setter, for example, when I was a player, one of my signature strengths was setting the slide, the connection with that middle hitter, especially on an off ball. For a hitter, it might be a specific swing. So we want to help athletes identify what is your signature play before we do this, and then we'll go ahead and guide them through. And we'll go ahead and start that now. I would invite you, coaches listening in, to just go ahead and get yourself in a comfortable position, and we'll try to do it from the perspective of a player so that you can use this for your players. So go ahead and get in a comfortable position if you're not already. I'd invite you to close your eyes. If you, and I always say this with all my players and encourage you to do the same, if you don't feel safe or comfortable closing your eyes, then keep your eyes open, have a soft gaze, staring at something in the room, but if you're doing it with your athletes, encourage your athletes, don't stare at anyone else in the room. Just give everyone privacy through this process. And we're going to just start by tuning into your breath. How are you breathing? You don't need to control your breath right now. Just notice how you're breathing. Are you breathing through your nose? Are you breathing through your mouth? Is your inhale longer than the exhale? And I want you to go ahead and do a body scan, starting at the top of your head, moving all the way down your body. And all we're doing, the body scan, is checking in on any tension, any emotion, any feelings that you feel. We're not trying to change them, we're just being aware of them right now, checking in with yourself. And now I want you to identify a specific skill that you would consider your signature strength. Signature strength in volleyball. And now I want you to picture yourself in a gym, in a specific game where that signature strength really shined. So just to start, just focusing on the visual aspects of it. Where are you playing? Where is this game? What does the court look like? What is the floor like? Is it sport court? Is it wood? Look around the gym. What do you see in the gym? What colors? What people do you see? Who do you see across the net? Your opponents, on the sidelines? Who's on your team? Your coaches? Who's on the court with you? Who's in the stands? And now shift your focus to sound, auditory. What do you hear in a gym? Whose voices do you hear? What does it sound like? You hear your teammates, coaches, fans. Is it difficult to hear your teammates because the gym's so loud? Right? Is it one of those big convention centers where there's multiple games happening all the time and lots of whistles and it's hard to hear? Or is it just you and is it just your team in a single gym you can hear? And now tune into what your body actually feels like. What emotions are you feeling in this game? Are you relaxed? Are you fired up? Are you feeling angry? Did something get you mad? Are you feeling frustrated? Are you excited? Now tune into sense of touch. What was the temperature like in the gym? What did your skin feel like? Were your hands sweaty? Were you cold? Were you hot? Was there any airflow? And now tune into the sense of smell and touch. If there are any things that come to mind. I'm sorry, smell and taste. Any smells or tastes that come to mind when you think about this game. Stinky knee pads in the huddle, the taste of Gatorade right before you went on to play. Try to get as present as you can to what it actually felt like when you played. And now try to think about, really tune into the primary emotion of how you felt when you played this game. I want you to go ahead now, and I want you to picture that signature skill that we talked about earlier. Whatever that was, and I want you to just picture yourself performing that skill in this game. And I want you to just picture it 3 times in a row, over and over again. You can slow it down if that's helpful. You can do full speed. You can play around with the speed. But go ahead and picture that signature skill now. And then just tune in again to how your body's feeling. Notice if there's any change in your emotional state. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and open your eyes. And so just to recap, what we just did there was we did a short guided imagery on the signature skill that the athlete has to help an athlete increase their confidence. Another version of this might be really focusing on maybe the top one or the top three emotions that they feel when they're playing their best, bringing to mind past performances, the time when they if they ever played, they felt like they were playing in a flow state, peak performance, and they want to repeat that. You can go ahead and use those past memories to really integrate those performances into our imagery sessions to help athletes prepare. So I'm going to stop here and go ahead and share a couple things. So I have this free workbook with a lot of those things that I mentioned. Things like having a worksheet or creating a journal with athletes, helping them identify their personal Hall of Fame worksheet. All of those worksheets are in here. You can visit my website. And these are my resources.